Welcome into our Action Network studios in New York City. I am Brendan Glasheen. This is Green Dot Daily. We are back every weekday at 3 Eastern, streaming live in the Action app, also on the Action Network YouTube. If you found us there, please subscribe to our channel, like the video too, if you are so inclined. A lot coming up on the show. Anthony Dabbundo is going to join us later on. He has a few MLB looks for today's slate. Also, he's a big Phillies guy. How is he consuming that National League wild card race? We're picking apart week 3 in college football as well. How are the books feeling about the money just dumping in on the Colorado Buffaloes? Coach Prime, he's got those guys going all the angles. This week against Colorado State, national title. His son is getting love for the Heisman Trophy. Patrick Everson has feet down in Las Vegas. He will give us the pulse. But first, we're going to welcome in our pals, Collin Wilson and Brett McMurphy. Here are their top 8 after 2 weeks, really 3 weeks, as we enter week number 3 in college football, 3 weeks in, including week 0. Brett's got Florida State at the top of his rankings, Georgia at 3, while Collin still has faith in the Bulldogs, the defending champions, number 1. But the love for Texas, the Longhorns, and their start and that victory against Alabama this week, that made headlines. Let's welcome these guys in now. From a national title perspective, Collin, well, I'll go to Brett first on this, actually, because, Brett, you've got Texas all the way at the top. Texas is now down to, you could have got 11-1, now 10-1 to win the national title. Your thoughts on Texas after that victory over Alabama over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have the talent to compete for the college football playoff. They've had the talent in the past years. Finally, they followed through and done something about it on the field. Now they have to avoid the missteps they've had in the past, losing games when they're heavy favorites. You look at the rest of the schedule; they will be heavily favored the rest of the way. The toughest game, Oklahoma and Dallas, that certainly wasn't a challenge last year. But at least right now, in the small snapshot of the season we have, Texas is a legit national title contender.
Collin, we were talking off air a second ago before we got started that you can still get Texas to win the Big 12 at -130 if you shop around. Now, I get it. They didn't beat a Big 12 team. They beat an SEC team in Alabama. That's a big-time win. Your thoughts on Texas? You've got them climbing up your board.
Yeah, I got them number 2 on my board from a power rating perspective. I was big on Texas winning the Big 12 preseason. I loved all the numbers out there from +150 down. I told everybody down to -120 because it serves as a money line ticket in the championship game. But I'm kind of shifting focus. I mean, Texas 11-1, 10-1 out there for the national title. What that Alabama game is, it was their one game they could burn, where they could lose and really still make the college football playoff by sweeping the rest of the schedule. They still have a game where they can lose and still make the college football playoff. And Brett mentioned that they're going to be, ahead of everybody else on their schedule from here on out. They're going to be favored by at least 3 over Oklahoma, by at least 5 over Kansas State. Don't know who's going to play in the Big 12 championship game, but Texas is going to be favored there. They have a great path to make the playoff. I love 10-1, 11-1 on Texas to win the national title. So yeah, I still love the Big 12 championship game. I love anything you could buy about these guys.
So you'd even take a look at -130?
Oh, I would even take that now. I mean, with the round robin nature and how you make it to Arlington, do you see Texas falling into 3rd place in this conference? Absolutely not. So that -130 serves as a money line wager when they get to that championship game.
So Brett, I misspoke. You've got Florida State at the top of your board and the way they've looked here early in the season. Give me the case for the Seminoles for being very much in the discussion for potentially the playoff and a national title.
Well, I just want to be clear here. I want everyone to know that Collin has a man crush on Sark, so kind of take that with a grain of salt. But no, I like Texas too. Look, Florida State right now, I think they're plus 10-1, 11-1 to win the national title, similar to Texas. Who has 2 thumbs and was smart enough to have Florida State ranked number 3 on their preseason AP ballot, higher than any of the other 61 voters? That's right, this guy right here. Collin likes Texas. I like Florida State. Why? The 2 schools have the 2 best non-conference wins right now. That will play big dividends when we get to the end of the season with the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. 2 weeks, Florida State goes to Clemson. They can crush the Tigers' ACC title hopes. And after that, Florida State finishes with a cupcake-like schedule, with apologies to any cupcakes out there. They will be a double-digit favorite in the remaining 8 games, with the exception of the regular season finale against Florida. If you like Florida State to win 11 or 12 games, and I do, you might also want to sprinkle a little bit on Jordan Travis to win the Heisman, because he will be in New York City.
Hey, Brett, you're making me hungry here with this cupcake talk, man. I mean, it's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon, for crying out loud. I mean, we got to save the dessert. Dessert comes after dinner. And I would add that the money is coming in on Boston College. As stinky as it's looked in Chestnut Hill, Boston College, that line has come down. It opened at 28, now it's at 26. Boston College at home dogs against Florida State. Let's look ahead now to the weekend and what picks you guys might have for this slate coming up. Collin, I will go to you first. You have a spot circled for Friday.
Yeah, I'm going to take Maryland minus 14.5. I expect this number to take a lot of steam, even possibly cross 17 before we get to kick. Virginia, I'm not believing. I saw James Madison throw up 30 points in an instance against this Virginia team. I'm not believing in their defense whatsoever, and it shows. They're dead last in the nation containing rush explosives. They're dead last in the nation in tackle grading per PFF. That's not a good combination going in against Maryland, who is just all explosives on offense. And you look at Virginia on the offensive side, looks like quarterback Tony Muskett's going to get the start here. Maryland's a top 25 pass defense. I know that they've played cupcakes. That's the theme of the show here. But, the one thing I go back to is havoc allowed is a big stat for me. That's when offenses just can't get out of their own way. They fumble the ball. They get tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Virginia's dead last. They've allowed 21 tackles for loss, almost more than anyone in the nation. Give me Maryland here to beat Virginia. I'll take a 14.5 right now.
And Brett, you are looking as soon as Thursday for a spot you like.
Yeah, Navy's at Memphis. Navy getting 14.5 right now. Look, when everyone saw Navy for the last time, they were being routed by Notre Dame. So everybody has given up on Navy. They're dead to everybody. Well, guess what? Notre Dame is good. They may be very, very good. And Notre Dame had all spring and all summer to prepare for that option. Memphis, however, is on a short week and has a trip to face Power 5 SEC foe Missouri next week. How much attention are they really giving Navy as a 2-touchdown favorite? In the past 3 years, Navy is a double-digit underdog, 11-3 against the spread. I will gladly take more than 2 TDs with Navy, facing a Memphis defense on a short week of prep, with one eye peeking ahead to a Power 5 opponent that could keep their New Year's 6 bowl hopes alive. Remember, you guys have heard this before. Good teams win, great teams cover. Go Mid-East plus 14.5.
All right, and Thursday night you'll have yourself a cupcake after they cover. All right, Brett McMurphy, Collin Wilson, thanks for stopping by the show. The cupcake theme was fun. Thanks for stopping by. Collin and Brett, but we will do so now. Colorado crazy. Look at the line movement coming in on Prime's Buffaloes. Colorado opened the year 300-1 to win the national title, down to 80-1. Shadur Sanders, the quarterback, 18-1 now to win the Heisman Trophy, and don't leave out Travis Hunter, now 35-1. The two-way magician. These guys are off to a fantastic start. Let's welcome in Patrick Everson, a Vegas insider. He's got feet down in Las Vegas. He's got the pulse of how, not the people, but the sports books, how they're feeling about this. And man, Patrick, just an easy discussion here as far as just this Colorado love, the money coming in still, even though they're laying more than 3 touchdowns this week against Colorado State. What can you tell us? I think you might be muted there, Patrick.
My fault, Brendan.
All
My
good.
apologies.
You were just so excited to weigh in. We got you.
Gosh. And I was, because it's my Colorado Buffaloes. I'm a proud Colorado alum. I'm very sorry about that. Doggone it. Look, I think the dichotomy is interesting. You notice there are 3 touchdown plus favorites this week. They were 3 touchdown dogs 2 weeks ago at TCU. So the transition is pretty large. In all cases, though, the bets just keep rolling in. They rolled in on Colorado against TCU. They rolled in on Colorado against Nebraska. I had Seamus McGee at BetMGM told me that of all NFL Week 1 games, only the Lions-Chiefs game and the Cowboys-Giants game had more money
Wow.
bet than Nebraska, Colorado, which I thought was fascinating. And obviously, Colorado is driving the bulk of the Colorado-Nebraska betting. But to your point, I mean, this is having ramifications not only on week 3 or week 3 for college football, where the numbers now, as you said, Colorado 23.5. Actually, there was some sharp play early in the week. One odds maker told me that it actually sharp play Colorado State plus 23. So they backed up to as low as 21.5. But now that same odds maker, 23.5 on Colorado, which is a ton of points. And I'm a pragmatic Buffaloes fan, so I'm not laying 23.5 points. That's not happening. But maybe we'll futz around in game on that, Brendan. But obviously other markets are huge with Colorado money. Colorado right now at BetMGM tied with Ohio State for the second most tickets to win the national championship.
Wow.
Third in money at BetMGM, behind only Alabama, which, by the way, Alabama is number 1 by a mile. A lot more money on Alabama at BetMGM than any other team. Michigan is number 2 in money. But with Colorado's long odds, as you noted at the top of the segment here, 300-1 to open, went 150-1 after beating TCU, 80-1 after beating Nebraska. 80-1 is even still a big number. So the liability is just piling up on Colorado. And I actually texted with Seamus McGee this morning just before getting on the segment here. It's still early here in early-ish here in Las Vegas. And he said it dwarfs the next highest team in national championship liability. It isn't close, and it won't be close.
We'll get to the Heisman in a second. This is what I'm fascinated by. And maybe you don't have anything here, so it's fine if that's the case. So the card overall for week 3 is sort of underwhelming. I mean, they're getting Colorado State, and that's no disrespect to Colorado State. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. It's not like a big, TCU is big. Nebraska with Matt LaFleur being there. The excitement that carried over from their first game into their second game. So this is what fascinates me. They get Oregon next week, and they're at Oregon, and it's down to 14. There's been some 14.5s. If that number gets under 2 touchdowns, I'd imagine the smarty pants people are going to come in on Oregon and have the Oregon Ducks win by 2 touchdowns. Can you tell me anything about the look-ahead spot for Colorado before they even play this game on Saturday night?
Right. And I think you're totally right. If this gets under 2 touchdowns at Oregon, they're going to be taking Oregon. And things get really interesting for Colorado because you've got Oregon and you got USC, I believe, in back-to-back weeks coming up here. So
imagine, I can't even imagine what the bookmakers are thinking for a total on that game, USC and Colorado in a few weeks.
Exactly. And what will obviously, as you alluded to, and we'll touch on it in a moment, obviously that could have some serious Heisman ramifications, at least early season, and how the odds progress there and who voters might be more intrigued by. Mm-hmm. But that is a brutal couple of weeks for Colorado. And as you said, look, I noted a moment ago that one odds maker told me there was some sharp play early in the week on Colorado State plus 23, took that back to 21.5. Now it's up to Colorado 23.5. So if they're willing to take 23 with Colorado State, they'll certainly lay 13.5 with a really good Oregon team that could be in the conversation for certainly in the Big 12 or Pac-12 and certainly possibly for the college football playoff. I mean, the Pac-12 is off to a pretty good start this season between USC and Oregon and Washington and so forth. So I think you're right. I think the sharp guys, if that gets under a touchdown, the odds makers may not even want to test 13.5 unless they really, although they might, because they're going to need to get some money and they're going to get Colorado money. There's just no question about it.
Right. That stance hasn't changed from the people. And if they beat Colorado State and cover and they beat the doors off them, I hope people are educated on how good that Oregon team is. So I'm fascinated by that. Let's go to the Heisman. So you mentioned the liability in national title, even just to make the playoff. But what about Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter, the kind of attention they're getting? How much of a liability are those two guys, mainly Sanders being the quarterback? And you said it, Caleb Williams coming up on that schedule in a couple weeks. What kind of liability from a Heisman perspective is there for the books?
It's massive. Seamus McGee basically said, repeat what I just said about the national championship liability. It isn't close and it won't be close. He said the same when talking national championship. He said the same goes for Sanders and Hunter for the Heisman Trophy. And again, these are numbers from BetMGM. Hunter, 150-1 into 35-1, but that was stagnant over the past week. That number did not change post TCU, post Nebraska. Hunter stays at 35-1. He didn't have quite the impact on the Nebraska game as he did on the TCU game, but he's got the most tickets at BetMGM, and he's got the second most money at BetMGM, while Sanders has the most tickets and second most money. They just swap places. They basically just swap places. They're 1-2 in money and 1-2 in tickets, and Hunter's on one side and Sanders is on the other. In fact, at BetMGM, 38% of all Heisman bets are on either Hunter or Sanders. Wow. And both have taken more than twice as many bets as Caleb Williams, though Williams is pretty close in the money count. The money count is really close between all three of them. It's like literally within 1% between Sanders and Williams and Hunter. But they're all right there. But the ticket count on Hunter and Sanders is huge. And because the odds are so big, the liability is tremendous. And I think they're, if Sanders goes out and has a big game this week and if he keeps shining through if he gets through the end of September and he's still shining like he is now, the liability is going to be, it's already insane, but he's going to move up more. And that liability at the much longer numbers is going to start to be, really getting in the minds of odds makers here, because it's just, there's so much money, tickets and money coming in on the both of them because of the long odds they had to start with, and really even the long-ish odds they had a week ago, and still much longer than Caleb Williams.
Okay, we can't help ourselves. We'll spend a quick minute on the NFL, and then we'll get you out of here. We'll get to Thursday night in a second. I want to talk Jets, Cowboys, right? So no Aaron Rodgers done for the year. It's Zach Wilson at quarterback. Totals come down to 39.5 points. The spread, you could have got a touchdown, and now that number's climbed to 9.5. Cowboys, home favorites. What can you tell us about this particular spot, and if the Cowboys are getting any love, or is there any faith in Zach Wilson? What can you tell us from Vegas?
Yeah, there's not a lot of faith. In looking at Caesar Sports numbers, they opened the Cowboys 3 before the Cowboys' dominance of the Giants on Sunday night.
Okay.
Went to 3.5 on Monday. Then you get the Rodgers injury. They go to 7.5, and then they go to 8, 8.5, and then 9.5. So there's not a lot, and I'm sure they were getting bet up to those numbers. And just in from an odds maker I speak with pretty regularly, Zachary Lucas. He's with Twin Spires. Smaller sports book, but it's a microcosm of what's going on in the market, I think, Brendan. And he said the public is all over the Cowboys versus Wilson and the Jets. He literally just sent this like minutes ago. So this is piping hot, fresh information. On the spread, ticket count 2.5 to 1, money 3 to 1 on the Cowboys. Now it's early going. There's not a whole lot of money or tickets in the pot. All this money is going to come in on Sunday, the bulk of it. But it's, midweek, they aren't minding laying nearly double digits with the Cowboys at this point.
Okay, quickly, Thursday night, Vikings, Eagles. This number's come down from the key number of 7 to 6.5. Eagles inside a touchdown as a favorite against the Vikings. It's primetime Kirk. These teams met early in the year last year. Kirk Cousins couldn't score in the red zone. Vikings finally lose a one-score game to open the year. They were undefeated in those spots last year. So those are all the things I'm thinking about as a bettor, but what are the books thinking?
Right, and this is really interesting also from Zachary Lucas just minutes ago. Ticket count on the spread 2 to 1 Eagles, but money is pretty much dead even as we sit here midweek for the rest of the NFL, but day before kickoff for this Thursday night game. And Zach did say sharp play on the Vikes +7, and their book is actually down to 6 at this point. You know, there's 6.5s out there, so they're liking that touchdown with the Vikes. I'm not terribly sure about that, but that's where the sharp money is early in the 24, 30 hours or so out from this game. Sharp play on the Vikings at +7, helping bring that number down.
Patrick Everson, a Vegas insider, thanks for all of your insight. We look forward to doing this again soon on Green Dot Daily.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you to Patrick. Looking at Major League Baseball, the NL wild card race is heating up. Philadelphia Phillies, they have a 1.5 game lead on the Cubs, who lost to the Rockies yesterday. Shout out to our payoff pitch crew that was on Colorado. The Snakes are hanging in there with that number 3 spot. Reds, Marlins, Giants still fighting to get in to the fall classic mix. Anthony Dabbundo joins us now. It's 2 straight days with Dabbundo on Green Dot Daily. How lucky are we? Hi, Dabbundo. Tough one for your Phillies last night. They almost pulled that off. But what are your thoughts? You're not worried about the Phillies, right? They're fine. They're gonna hold on.
Yeah, Fangraphs has them at 97% to make the playoffs. They'd have to lose probably 14, 13 games to miss. So yeah, not too worried about them. They are in a tight race with the Cubs for the first wild card, which we'll get to host. The Cubs are a 1.5 games back. Phillies do have the tiebreaker over the Cubs. So really 2.5 back. So yeah, not too worried about the Phillies, but this is a fascinating race, and there's so many different tie-breaking scenarios to get into, and who has what over who, and what does the remaining schedule look like, and how good are these teams? Are any of them actually good baseball teams? I think that remains to be seen.
So of those other teams, before we get to your picks for tonight, of those other teams, Marlins at the bottom, 18% per Fangraphs. Reds, Giants, how does it shake out? Who are your three? So I think Phillies 1 as far as that first wild card, and then really 2 through 5 there. Those other 5 teams kind of up for grabs.
Yeah, Chicago has a huge weekend series with Arizona this weekend. That's going to play a huge role in kind of opening the door for one of the other 3 to kind of sneak their way in here. Fangraphs does like the Giants more than the Reds, but if you look at the Giants' schedule, it's considerably more difficult. They still have 7 left with the Dodgers. And whatever you think of the Padres at this point, they do play them 3 more times as well. So the Giants have the toughest remaining schedule of the bunch. The Marlins are dealing with a bunch of injuries with Jorge Soler and Sandy Alcantara down. So, I think ultimately this probably comes down to D-backs Reds. And, that is where the tie-breaking scenarios really play a role here. The D-backs will not have the tiebreaker with the Reds. They will not have the tiebreaker with the Marlins, and they will probably not have the tiebreaker with the Giants. So, the fact they're in first place right now is meaningful, but they have this big weekend series with the Cubs. Then they have 2 with the Giants. They finish with Houston. So, who knows what the Astros look like from their pitching perspective at that point, but it's going to be a really tight race down the stretch here. I know everybody's worried about the NFL, college football, and we're all excited, but this race into October could come down to the final day. And I think there's a decent chance in the National League that it does, because really, I think the Cubs are clearly the next team, like the 5th seed, and could maybe sneak up to 4. I don't see them getting caught because I think they're just better than the other teams. But none of those 4 teams to me on paper are all that different in true talent, true quality. So I think this comes down to the final weekend.
And as a reminder, folks, that the 1-game wild card is over. That is not a thing anymore. So that if you get in that top 3, you're in. You're in the dance, and you got a chance here to play a couple games and make your way, like the Phillies did last year. Picks for tonight, Dabbundo. What do you got for us? You got a couple of strikeout props. And, pardon me, a couple of pitcher props, one being a strikeout prop.
Yeah, so we'll stick with the Phillies and the Braves tonight. Braves have a chance to clinch the National League East for the 6th consecutive season if they're able to win tonight in Philadelphia. It's Spencer Strider on the mound, but I'm actually targeting Christopher Sanchez for the Phillies under 15.5 pitching outs, -115. The Phillies are switching around their rotation. They've been going with a 6-man rotation for large parts of the last month, but they're switching back to 5, and that will put an extra pitcher in the bullpen, as well as rosters expanding. And what we've seen as a result of that is that Sanchez has had his innings managed a little bit. He's passed a career high in innings. They've been kind of, being careful with him, making sure he doesn't go over, and they haven't been exposing him to a 3rd time through some of the top lineups they've played this year. And so I think there's a very real chance that they're a little bit cautious with him seeing, Matt Olson or Ronald Acuna more than 2 times tonight. So I like the under 15.5 outs. He hasn't gone over his last 2 outings as they cut back on him. And, of course, the Braves lineup have the ability to get to anybody. Sanchez does have a long ball issue that could play a role here tonight.
Ronald Acuna, that guy is he's a machine, the way he's playing right now, running away with National League MVP. Okay, this one's the strikeout prop. You're turning the Yankees-Red Sox. What do you got?
Yeah, the Red Sox, their playoff hopes may be dashed, but they're still a really tough lineup against right-handers. Sorry, Brendan. Clark Schmidt, the starter for the Yankees, has seen a pretty steady decline in his swinging strike rate throughout the course of the season. If you look at his rolling chart, and it's come with a change in the pitch mix as he's tried to get better against lefties. He had a real home run problem and slugging problem against lefties early in the season. Now he faces a lineup that can load up a lot of left-handed pitching and guys that have high contact rates like Yoshida and Verdugo and Devers. They have the 5th lowest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, and Clark Schmidt's strikeout rate against left-handed batters is below 20% this year. So I think this total is a little bit too high, so I'm going under 4.5 strikeouts for Clark Schmidt against the Red Sox in Fenway tonight.
All right, Dabbundo, thanks for stopping by. 2 straight days on the show. Enjoy the baseball, and we'll talk to you again soon. I
think I'm back Friday, so it should be fun.
We keep you busy, man. I mean, and you keep us really, you keep this show alive, really, is what I've kind of developed here.
It's far too kind.
All right, go. Thanks to Anthony Dabbundo for joining the show. As a reminder, you can find our picks live in the Action app over at green.daily, an account dedicated to the show to see all of the picks, and we keep track so you don't have to. That's the plan here. And that is going to wrap up our Wednesday edition of Green Dot Daily. Please join us again tomorrow. We're here the rest of the week. Dabbundo's back Friday. He already told you the plan for Friday's show. So we're here every weekday, 3 Eastern, streaming live in the Action app, also on Action Network YouTube. I am Brendan Glasheen. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And like I said, we'll talk to you again tomorrow.